Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services in Eastland, Texas. Tune in every week as we share important information to help you and your family live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, legacy and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Good evening, everybody. This is the Black and White Market Minute on Life Planning 101. How are y'all doing today?
Fantastic. I think this is the first one of this year. Is this right?
No, we did one. It's been a bit, but I think we did one at the very beginning talking about the new year. But
hate to leave everybody hanging. It has been a while, and oh my gosh, has lots of things happened. Lots of things happened. I think if you look at the news, the world has actually ended, but that's not so much the case. Really, the big thing has been war in Iran. I think that took everybody by surprise. I know in a big picture, this has been a geopolitical issue for decades and decades, but something was actually done about it, and it was swift, and we've been dealing with it ever since. And the bad thing with Iran is there's a tremendous amount of oil that comes out of that country. And when we're talking about oil, big picture, economic event, if oil spikes or you can't get your hands on oil, the whole world slows down. Everything we do is basically some type of oil product. Agriculture, natural gas is used for fertilizers, and there's some other chemicals that have been slowed down. So there has been a lot of fear placed in this market. And I've talked to several people, and the fear of the headlines has been pretty drastic, really drastic. And it's been scary how things have looked. But, really the market hasn't done really anything. I wanted to go through and kind of a rundown of everything that's happened so far. The market didn't start out extremely strong this year, and that's okay. We were at an all-time high, so the market getting a breather is a beautiful thing, and it's a welcome thing. We want earnings to catch back up to prices. That way we're not in such a expensive market. And even before that, a lot of the AI picture has slowed down since about October. So any of that story, basically, except just a few companies, has taken a big breather. And that's welcome. We like to see that. But anyways, back to the historical stuff. Around March the 30th, the market was down 8.88%, I believe. That was the amount of damage, and that was the height of us going to war and it being prolonged and maybe putting boots on the ground. But that was the length of the damage. Some of the other places, speaking of AI, semiconductors were down about 15%. So the market had definitely weakened by that point. Gold did his thing, and from a protection standpoint, I think gold hit its high. Was it March 1st or somewhere early March? And it hit its all-time high February-ish. It was up about 25% year to date, and then that second time frame, early March, it hit 23%. But it's weakened down to a total of a positive 8% return. So gold has still been an outstanding investment. But what I really wanted to focus on is if you've been an investor since even, say, 2018, there's this new saying that's out there, and it's called buy the dip, BTD. And it's been super successful. Every time the market goes down, you treat it as a blessing and load up. Well, this was no different. And at the height of the fear, like I said, the market was down about 9%. That was March 30th. It is April 24th, and now the market is back up to a little over 4%. Semiconductors are up 33% year to date. They went from negative 15 to 33% up. That is an extremely wild ride. And like I said, this has happened several times. 2018, that had to do with our debt. We had COVID, which was the fastest drop in history and the fastest recovery in history. 2022 was a little bit different. That one lasted an entire year, but right back to normal. We had 2025 in April, and that lasted about a month, and this month is the same thing. And that's why we preach so hard, and I know it probably gets aggravating listening to us, but we try so hard to make sure we have everybody's risk tolerance correct. Because if you couldn't have handled, I'm just using semiconductors as an example, if you couldn't have handled the 15% down, you wouldn't have been able to handle the 45% recovery. If you couldn't have handled the 9% down in S&P, you couldn't have handled the 15% recovery there. It whipsaws really, really fast. And, the name of the game is to make sure you're taken care of 30 years from now, 40 years from now. And if you're looking at a chart, doesn't matter what it is, the further you can stretch that thing out, the more of a smooth line it is. So over time, and I'm talking year, 5 year, 10 years, 20 years, the longer your time frame, the smoother the line gets. But it's very rarely a very fun ride in the short term because it does bounce around. So there's a reason for a madness. And, even if we were taking, 60% of the market, you could handle a 10% drawdown, that would have worked because you would have, even an S&P being down as much as it was, you'd still be in the game, and you would still be making money, and you'd still be positive year to date. So, I think the regular investor averages, this has bounced around forever, but somewhere around 2.5%, 3%. So what's getting in our way is our emotions and our belief that this is the end. So our goal, even if you're taking half the risk of the market, 5-6% is a heck of a lot better than 2.5%. So let's make sure we get everybody correct and have good, honest conversations on that risk tolerance, and then we can help you be successful over the long term. Now here at our firm, we've had a fantastic year. Think we should be right up double digits on the upside on one of our portfolios, and the other equity portfolio is up a little bit greater than the market. So we've been happy with what is going on. Again, sometimes when things get so high, you welcome that breather. Just like NVIDIA, I don't know if we've talked about this, but NVIDIA's earnings shot through the roof, and the price didn't move. So from an earnings standpoint, the stock didn't go down, but the stock was boring. But our PE is now 23 instead of 50. So we're paying $23 per $1 of earnings instead of 50. So we really like for things to catch up and smooth out. And this is a good thing. Even if it's a slow year, we are going to welcome it and hope the ship kind of it rights the ship for the year from a price standpoint, because nothing else has changed. Nothing. AI is still here to stay. Lots of building going on. Our economy was in a good place fourth quarter of last year. Oil has gotten more expensive with the war, but if this thing can finish out fast enough, we should be okay. What do y'all What are y'all hearing? What are y'all thinking?
I'm thinking, so whenever you're thinking about long-term investing, down 9% in the S&P 500 is just half of the average down period in any given year. You should expect the market broadly to be down 18% in any given year. So, I mean,
Any and every.
it doesn't feel good when it's happening, but it's really just not even a blip on the radar in the broad scheme of things. And yet we're once again close to all-time highs. You see people who are more risk-averse individuals who are wanting to take on more risk, which may be an indicator to start second-guessing yourself. Are we getting over our skis, or
That part's scary.
yeah, or are we leaning into a productivity drive that's like nothing we've seen since the railroads and the internet, all of the capital build-outs in history, the interstate highway system. I think those are all good comparisons to the current data center build-out. We have yet to see the productivity gains that AI is going to bring, but between robotics and AI, I think the future can be unimaginably awesome.
Yeah.
And so we're super excited for that kind of thing. But at the same time, we're seeing risk-averse investors try to reach out there and get a little bit more risk. We just want to make sure not only do you understand kind of the weather that you have to stand out in whenever you take that additional risk, but that you can hold on to it when you face that bad experience. If you were starting to take on excessive risk, and I'm not equating today to the dot-com bubble per se, but if you started reaching out in 1999, early 2000, because everybody was making, they were paying off their mortgages with internet stocks. And if you held those internet stocks for the next decade, you were still negative. I mean, Microsoft was negative from 2000 till 2014 or so. So you just make sure, risk is extremely important. We don't want to take excessive risk, or especially concentrated risk in high valuation companies that are popular today, because the companies that are popular today invite competition, and that competition invitation usually brings lower prices in the future. So
Can't stay at the top forever. That's for sure.
Nope.
Well, and I think we were kind of talking about it before this. That goes to, if you're hearing about it in the news and you're hearing about it in the world, you're probably already too late to get a jump on that ride.
Yes.
I mean, it's just like, I think a really good indicator right now is, not now because it's taken a dive, but Bitcoin was a good one. Back whenever it first started, it was worth literal cents, less than a cent, and now it's worth over, I think we just hit 77,000. At one point it was worth 115,000 for a Bitcoin, And so people investing now, I mean, it's already in the news. So when we talk to people about their risk and whatnot, a lot of times people get tunnel vision on the moment. They live in the present where everything's on the up and up, and so they're not as worried because they think it'll go up. But once things start going down, that's when they get scared and they pull that money out. That's what we want to avoid, because pulling that money out, that is, the way that I put it is, that's when you accept the loss. Because if you keep it in the market, you can still recover it. Just like, the negative 15% to the 33%. That happens, but people who are risk averse, they want to get out of it before it gets worse, and that's when it's a problem, because you're accepting that it went down.
Now, you nailed it. Now, one thing we got to remember, kind of to build off of what Kade was saying, if we are an equity investor, we are accepting equity or stock risk. If you're in a handful of stocks and they go down drastically, it doesn't mean to hold on to those if they're bad companies, but it does mean to keep the same amount of stock investments. So if we were heavily invested in oil, let's use as an example, and that goes down drastically, that doesn't mean keep holding on to that. Maybe we change and go a different direction, but we have to have that equity exposure. And if we're using, you're diversified, that cuts down on that risk, but you just can't give up on the change. You can't give up on the style of investing. And once you do, you can't get it back. I mean, I think you were talking about Bitcoin. That was beautiful. You're never going to get the ride of $1 Bitcoin all the way up to 77,000. That's never. You're not getting it back. You know, it's from 77 on into the future and what it's going to do. So make sure you can handle the amount of risk that your amount of equity provides.
And the hard part is it's almost like anytime something, I was thinking about it as you were saying, you're going to feel things in the present a lot more, kind of like when you have a really embarrassing moment. In the moment, it seems like it's the end of the world.
Oh,
and then years and years down the road, you're like, why was I even worried? Like, I can remember days in high school where I was worried about every little thing. And now here I am, and I'm like, wow, that really didn't mean a thing. That's the same with investments. We go through ups and downs. You have your 08s, you have your .com bubbles, you have your COVIDs, and we're at highs again.
Yeah.
So and that's what makes the market work, is that it has its ups and downs. If it just kept going up, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Logically, you can't. That would make no sense.
There is a risk to investing. Doesn't matter what your investing is, but there is a risk. And that is one of the beautiful things that actually happens, because we get to see the risk. We get to feel the risk on a daily basis, and that is the ups and the downs. But as more and more time goes on, we get to, let's say, realize the fruits of that. So,
And there's something to be said for holding bonds in a portfolio. I mean, right now, I think the yields are very marginally better than CPI year to date, and inflation may rear its head in the future as a result of this war and higher gas prices and things of that nature. But I mean, even if you consider it equal to CPI, or inflation, so that you're just maintaining purchasing power by holding bonds, I mean, that's still your dry powder whenever you get an opportunity to rebalance in a down market. So there's kind of two ways to face volatility in the market. You can either reduce your living standard by selling out of a bad market and permanently damage your portfolio, or you can view it as an opportunity to retire a little bit sooner than you otherwise would have whenever you're buying a discounted stock market. Ultimately, over time, it is going to recover, and it's going to recover and go above what it was prior to the drawdown. So that's kind of two ways to approach it. Are you going to permanently reduce your retirement in the future, or are you going to expedite your retirement by being less emotional and more logical about betting on the American economy?
But the piece to remember about that, though, is the important piece of what you're investing is to make sure it's not part of your normal everyday budget.
yes.
Only
Very, very
invest, regardless of what your risk is. I would always go into it thinking, invest what you're okay to lose. If it's your paycheck that you're paying bill to bill, then it may not. It doesn't always work.
Don't do it, because it only has to tick higher to keep you solvent.
Exactly.
This is saving long term, not the milks, not the eggs. It is the extra. This is my future fund.
Exactly.
So we keep on that. You said something earlier about AI and productivity gains. And there was a bit of news that came out today that two huge companies were going to start laying people off. That was Meta and Microsoft. I don't know. They were both at the 10,000 mark. And I can't remember which was which, but 9,000 on Meta. And the article I was reading was kind of framing it that they were letting those people off to free up some money so they could continue their AI build-out. But honestly, do y'all think that's what it is? I think it's a lot of it that those people are needed because of AI, and the productivities that company can make using those agents, they can continue growing using the technology that they're creating.
I would probably say that it's probably a bit of both. There's probably some of it too. We can free up some money to do some more developing. Because also think about it too. If these people who are getting laid off, what if 3 of those people could make up one per? What if they could hire somebody of a higher caliber that is more AI specialized with the salary that they were using to pay these people.
I've sicked Kade on some AI projects and said, this is what I want to see if you can figure out how to do this. And he's brought back some amazing things. Same thing with Sam and what we're able to create. And the easiest thing is what we can summarize in such a short amount of time. It is fantastic.
But the hard part that people, and this is kind of going back to the big like AI job thing, is you still have to communicate with AI in a way that it's going to understand it. Because I've definitely put something in and it is spit something out that I was like, I don't know where you got this, but that is not at all what I needed.
I don't know if you're part of that. I know Sam was making fun of me arguing with AI the other day.
You definitely have to have you definitely have to look over its shoulder to make sure that it's doing what you want it to do, and you have to double check. If you want it to run some financials for you, you have to double check those numbers and make spot check them at the minimum.
Well,
I think Aaron's wife actually sent it out to the office. He had an argument with an AI bot, and she downloaded it and sent it off to the office, and everybody was laughing at Aaron because he was just going back and forth with this AI bot, arguing with it and calling it names and stuff because it wasn't producing an actual answer that he was looking for.
But it was not factual. That's what frustrated me. It was just like, why would you tell me this?
Yeah.
Well, it's almost like it's almost like you hired an intern is how I would explain AI.
Yeah.
Is
Einstein as an intern.
Exactly. Someone who can think really fast.
Let's put this in perspective. A 12-year-old Einstein
With a college degree.
You don't know if he's going to jack with you, tell you the truth, be completely immature, or just lay his brilliance out.
Exactly.
You know, that's what you're dealing with.
Anytime dealing with AI, I've always said, do not just, whatever it spits out, check it. Don't trust it blindly, because you never know what, because just like you, we're all prone to mistakes. You know, one bit of bad information in our head makes the wrong conclusion, and that's exactly how AI is operating.
Yeah.
So.
Go back to the labor market, though. One thing, and I haven't read into it, so I can't speak to it. Microsoft was doing a voluntary retirement offer instead of laying off or firing or anything like that. So, I mean, and it's the first time they've ever done it. I don't quite understand. If they needed the capital, they would lay off the employees. They could be doing it as a face-saving, not, maybe trying to encourage some of their older employees to go ahead and lay down the pencils. But it doesn't really make sense to me. And like I said, I haven't read into it. Maybe they have a good justification for it. But either you need the capital or you need the employees. To say we could go on with or without you seems like, I don't know, it seems like bad judgment or a misallocation of resources either way.
No. Yeah, you nailed it. I think they don't need them. They are probably trying to save money, and then technology's made it where it's okay to do this. I think it's a combination of a lot of things, and with the advancement of AI, maybe it's tied a little bit on the employee front, but hey, Microsoft as Copilots can pick up the slack. And it frees up some capital. We can still build our.
But I would also be curious if it ever came out. I would love to see the demographic of the people they laid off.
I think Sam just nailed that. It's
and that's kind of what made me think about it, because depending on the demographic, that would get us closer to the answer that we're looking for.
Yeah.
Did they just?
Well, they definitely wouldn't have laid out a demographic, but maybe a part of the business they highlighted.
Right. Right. Well, and that's what I mean. I would agree with the sentiment, Sam. I would agree.
The whole thing, AI is here to stay. It is going to change our world so drastically, and this is across the world. We're going to be building data centers across the world. This is going to reach pretty much everybody. If you have electricity and a computer, it will reach you. So that story is not even slowing down. We're still I don't want to say focusing, but we're heavily interested in it. And well, no. We are focusing on it, but it's not a heavy, concentrated position in our portfolios. But we are super focused. But what I kind of wanted to push forward is for all of this to take place, there's a lot of things that have to fall in place. I mean, this is a beautiful story so far. The technology is being more productive, but in order to have the data centers, we need more electricity. We need chips. There is so many things that have to take place for this whole dream to come true, and it's constrained right now. And then that's the opportunity from an investment standpoint. So one of the biggest things is, how do you invest when you know, hey, this project's probably not going to get done because it's going to take 5 years to get some power to it, versus, hey, this company is providing this technology or this equipment. It's not just throw a dart and everything works perfectly. There's a lot of things going on right now.
And it's not, it is and it isn't uncharted territory in this sense. And the reason why I say that is, a lot of people are like, oh, AI is changing the world and whatnot. We don't know what's going to happen. But this is the same situation of any technological advancement we've had in history.
Yeah.
Just off the top of my head, the railroad, that took people's jobs. That took people's jobs away from them. They had hiccups because, you had to find the materials to build the railroads, to power the trains, to do all these things. So we're not reinventing the wheel, we are enhancing the wheel. And so I think people are getting very scared. But look, I mean, we had the Iron Age, the Bronze Age, the railroad, the plane, and we're still kicking years and years down the road.
It's cool. There's a new show on Netflix, and it's like Founders of America or Explorers of America. I mean, it's very, very new. And they were talking about the Lewis and Clark expedition. Jefferson sent them on this journey, and they had no idea what was past Indiana territory. They had no idea. Jefferson truly thought there was still dinosaurs out there. He really did. And what is the equivalent of going into an unknown thing, trying to figure it out? I mean, it's got to be the equivalent of going to Mars or, deep space exploration. We have taken on these kind of risks and these kind of fears since the beginning of time. And right now, we're doing the same thing. It's just from a technological standpoint.
I'm talking about the electricity and capacity. Electricity requires oil and gas to be generated, or oil and gas is required for electricity to be generated, and there's about to be a big change in the supply of oil and gas, especially over in the Gulf states and Iran, based on them having to stop production because of the blockade. So if they can't ship their oil all over the globe like they have done in the past 54, 55 years because of this blockade, Aaron, you were telling me that there was damage that could be done to the wells, and not just, temporary stuff that can be fixed overnight, but more permanent kind of destruction of the underlying, under the ground aspect of the well.
So whatever's going on today, the war in Iran, that is a scary risk. And biggest question, and the biggest risk, the biggest fear, is how long does this continue on? Because we got to get back to running our lives, running our country, economic growth, and all that. So how long does this war in Iran take place? And I think that it's going to fix itself sooner rather than later. And there's a lot of people posturing right now. There's a lot of people, leaders, trying to figure out who's going to win this or not. But at the end of the day, Iran's economies run on energy. They're drilling oil, they're drilling gas, and that's what drives their entire economy. And right now, that oil and gas can't go anywhere. We've shut off the strait, like Sam said. There are no pipelines out it's stuck. It can't go anywhere, so it really can't produce. And a well, if you take an oil well and stop it, it permanently breaks it permanently. There's an impairment there that you cannot get back, and it doesn't take that long before you're doing damage that can't be undone, and that's about 25 days. So Iran has to make a decision on what they want to do, or forever reduce the income on their economy. So to me, we're still in posturing, and somebody's got to lose, but they got to lose so gracefully that it looks like they won. And how do we figure out how do they do that? Yeah, I gave up my nuclear ambitions of enhancement. I'm going to start treating my people better. I've got a new government structure that I will put our people first.
I preserved our economy for the future.
Yes. Someone's got to save grace, because if not, it's done. And I'm not saying it will not produce oil and gas anymore, but it will not produce at the levels that it is today. And the clock is ticking on that. So somebody has to make a decision pretty quick, or there's no need to make a decision. That country won't be able to do what it's ever done.
Yeah, not to give him too much credit, because everybody knows he undermines himself sometimes, but I wonder if the big energy independence push he did in his first term, I wonder if he had something with Iran planned for his second term. Now, I know he didn't plan on losing the next election, but I think we get 2% of our oil from the Strait now, whereas we're now a net exporter, whereas before his first term, that was not the case. So it's almost, and it could be a very, very convenient coincidence, but we've become more independent of international oil and gas prices, which means that this war has had less of an effect on us now that we hedged our bets by being exporters of oil in this scenario. Yeah, the price of oil and gas go up as a result of this, but we own a ton of oil and gas. So where we lose, maybe at the pump, part of our economy is also being generating more profits than they have in years as a result of it, which also gets pushed right back around into the economy through increased spending from that sector.
I hadn't thought about it from the standpoint of working on his first period to doing what it was. 40 chests, and golly, I don't know. I hope so. It's absolutely brilliant. If that's the case, that's what it absolutely looks like, because the U.S. is the king of oil and gas. We've been the largest growth driver in the entire world for a considerable amount of time. Yes, oil is going to go up because it is a global commodity. We can't change the price of West Texas Intermediary versus Brent for too long, or people will start taking advantage of that price difference. So we've got to go up the same amount. But like you said, we're perfectly fine. We can sit here and wait this out. There's only one state in our country that does not rely on U.S. oil, and that's California. I think they're so strict with their emissions stuff, and they have to get their blends from out of this country. But the rest of us are fine, and we can wait. And if that was 3D chests or 4D chests, very interesting.
So before we leave today, because it sounds like we have a lot, I want to wrap it up with just a few little planning pieces that I kind of realized over the week, just kind of reminders to keep as you go through. So one of the things that you may not realize is if you're making non-deductible IRA contributions, that does create what's called an after-tax basis in your IRA. And what that means is you want to keep track of that because your IRA is not going to keep track of it. But what that means is as you take withdrawals from your IRA, that creates a non-taxed portion every time because it's done pro rata. So the way to think about it is if you have $10,000 that you contributed after tax and you have $100,000 in there, that means 10% of any withdrawal is going to be tax-free. So you want to keep track of it just to make sure that you're not losing out on the tax benefit. And the second thing is if you are a high earner where you're earning over $150,000 a year, one of the cool things is that with all the tax changes that's happened in the world, in our economy, your employer, any contributions past a certain limit, they are forced to make it as a Roth contribution. So what that means is it's even more important to maximize any contributions you're making to your retirement plan.
That's the coolest thing I've ever heard.
Like, it's
so
just the fact that they
excited
have to do it as a Roth because, I mean, before a few years ago, everything was still traditional Roths. It still had a lot of power, but now in recent years, you can now make Roth contributions to your 401k. That wasn't always a thing, but now we're having it to where the employer themselves have to put it into a Roth if you're making so much.
That is awesome.
In what situations would you be making non-tax deductible IRA contributions?
Well, and remember too, whenever you're making deductible ones, you have to have some form of earned income, and you have it in some situations where some people are contributing to their IRAs when they don't have earned income, and this could be something anywhere from dividend interest. If you're still getting an alimony, that's not taxed nowadays, and that's not considered earned income.
Make too much money.
Yeah, if you make too much money, that all doesn't. So you can make, and so at the end of the day, you would make a non-deductible one.
There's several things.
And so in those situations is when you would create that after-tax basis. And people don't realize that, and they don't keep track of it because if you can't prove it, then obviously the IRS is not going to give you that benefit. And the final thing I want to leave with is, if you weren't aware, starting in, I believe it is 2033, the RMD age actually goes up. And so right now, currently, you have to start taking from your qualified accounts at 73. But starting in 2033, it moves up to 75, which adds 2 years to your time horizon of doing some stuff. Yeah. I think Aaron just missed that timeline, but, that's okay. So just keep in mind that everything is fluid with the planning, everything is fluid with the market, and that's really it. But do y'all have any final words before we sign off for the day?
Lots of cool changes happening.
Yeah.
Regardless of what you hear in the news, if you're worried, give us a call. We're working on this stuff constantly, so we'll at least tell you what we're thinking, how we feel, and how we're acting on this information. So just because the news prints it or the news says it doesn't necessarily mean it's as bad as they think. So just let's keep cool heads. The most important thing is our loved ones. Not guaranteed that we have tomorrow, so let's focus on what's important today, and let us stress about all the other stuff.
Yeah, and we're talking today with somebody in private credit and learned that there's a lot of the nuance and not exactly correct reporting in the news on the private credit space. So if you're seeing those headlines, just know that, give us a call. We can talk about it. But it's not exactly what they're reporting, and it's a little bit more nuanced than they're stating that it is. So, just keep your heads cool.
And just remember that it's our job to worry about the market. And at the end of the day, I will say it every day at the end of this podcast, the best advice I've ever gotten about the market is to just not look at it.
Yeah.
Y'all have a great evening.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Smart Money Group and Kennedy Financial Services. If you have questions, you can email them to lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more Life Planning 101. The opinions expressed herein are those of the firm and are subject to change without notice. The opinions referenced are as of the date of publication and are subject to change due to changes in the market or economic conditions and may not necessarily come to pass. Any opinions, projections, or forward-looking statements expressed herein are solely those of the author, may differ from the views or opinions expressed by other areas of the firm, and are only for general informational purposes as of the date indicated. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, a registered investment advisor, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Smart Money Group LLC. Kennedy Financial Services and Smart Money Group LLC are separate entities and are not owned or controlled by Calton & Associates Incorporated.